Thanks very much, Paul. Good morning, everybody. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. As Paul has said, one of the things that I've been doing over the past 2 to 3 years is working with UNISON in the North West to do some research and evaluation into the organising initiatives that have been undertaken in the region, and that work's actually still continuing at the moment. So it's very sort of, it's great for me to be here today. The task that I've got is to set the scene first of all, and to really sort of set out some of the national and broad challenges. So what I'm going to say isn't going to be specifically UNISON related, it's not even going to be specifically public sector, public services related. It's going to be looking at the broad challenges facing trade unions in the current climate in terms of union density, in terms of organisation. And to that extent, some of the brute statistics here are slightly sobering, but I think it's really important that we're aware of that so that we know, as trade unionists and activists, the scale of the challenges that are in front of us and the importance of the task. Okay, so on that first slide there, I'm not sure how many people can see these, so I'll read these out. This just shows to me some of the scale of the challenges, and these statistics are fairly reliable. They're taken from the Labour Force Survey or the Workplace Employment Relations Survey. And what you see if you look at union density over the last 30 or so years is a significant and, generally speaking, a continuing decline. Now, I probably don't need, certainly don't need me to tell you that, but in 1980, 55% of the workforce were members of trade unions. That fell to 32% by 1995, and then the most recent figures put trade union density around 26%, 25.6 is the latest figure in fact. Now, that has slowed somewhat, okay, over the past 8, 9, 10 years, that has slowed somewhat, and one of the arguments for that slowing, particularly given the scale of the recession and other pressures like that, is that union organising over the last few years has started to have an effect, at least in starting to arrest that decline, which is critically important. What it's not doing at the moment, or what we've been unable to do, is to start to really reverse that decline. Another key issue in relation to this is perhaps a generational one, and it's one that I've heard often talking to union activists around the country, I've heard often talked about, and that is in terms of particularly younger workers. And actually the figures there are really sobering. So if you look at 16 to 24-year-old workers, and these are workers, we're not talking about all 16 to 24-year-olds, those people in employment, just 8% are trade union members. Between 25 and 34 years, just about 1 in 5 are trade union members. One of the key things to remember here, however, is that the same sort of government statistics on which this is based shows that the groups for whom trade union membership has the biggest impact in terms of their income are younger workers. 16 to 24-year-old workers, that is the group where the trade union markup on their income is highest. So that's the group on which the work of trade union activists can have the massive impact. But obviously a key question is how one gets through to that. But it's not just about union membership, and it's not just about recruitment, but it's also about organisation. Currently, around just under a quarter of employees are covered by collective bargaining. If you look at all workplaces, only 7% of workplaces in the UK were unionised and had an on-site union rep. And when you realise and understand, a lot of the research suggests that union recruitment quite often is very closely linked to presence and visibility, and having a rep on site in that office, in that school, in that hospital, in that department, then that is a crucial statistic and a slightly worrying one. And if you look at all unionised workplaces, it's less than a third, it's only 32% of unionised workplaces have an on-site rep. Now, the figures, if we look at the public sector, are different to that. They are much more positive, and it's important that those figures there's a lot of complexity underneath that. But, nonetheless, even in the public sector, the biggest fall in collective bargaining coverage over the past 5 or 6 years has been in the public sector, because of things like pay review bodies, etc. So the challenges are throughout different sectors, private, public, etc. Okay. I just want to throw up a couple of graphs, okay, and I know this is early in the morning for this stuff, but I really like this graph because for me, this demonstrates why the sort of work, the things that we're doing today and the sort of work that union activists across the country do in trying to build union organisation fundamentally matter. Now I know you'll say, we all know why it matters. But this graph shows a graph between UK union membership and income inequality, okay? And if you look at the red, that's union members in their thousands, and the blue is the top 1% of income share. And what you can see through that is basically it's a very simple message. As trade union membership falls, income inequality grows. As trade union membership rises, income inequality falls. That is where things like today have a bigger impact in terms of society as a whole. Away from all the day-to-day issues that, and I speak as a union rep as well, that we get involved in, that is where organising has a significant impact. And again, it's not just about union membership. This is a similar thing. Collective bargaining and income inequality. As we bargain more, as unions bargain more and have an impact on terms and conditions, income inequality falls. You can see the red there is the Gini index, which is a measure of inequality. And as collective bargaining has fallen in the UK, income inequality has increased. So the things that trade unions do, trade union activists do on a daily basis have an impact on the sort of society that we want to live in. And just finally, I'm going to say a little bit about organising, and I know my colleagues are going to talk about this in a lot more depth, so I don't want to sort of talk about this in too much detail. However, why do people join trade unions? All the research suggests the main reason why people join trade unions above anything else is support. They want support. And that might be over an individual issue, it might be in collective terms, but they want support in the workplace over their pay, their conditions, the issues they're going through. In addition to that, whether unions recruit is very closely related to whether there is a union presence in the workplace, where the union is visible. And the people that I talk to about these issues say that time and time again. Where the union is visible, people are more likely to join, they are more likely to become active. Now, what does the evidence say in terms of organising? It's a little bit mixed, to be honest. And a lot of people look at organising and they say, well, it hasn't actually increased necessarily union density to any great extent. It hasn't sort of turned the tanker around. However, if you look at the sort of challenges that unions have had, particularly over the last 5 or 6 years, particularly in the public sector in terms of austerity, what a lot of people are increasingly saying is the reason why actually the decline of union density is stabilised, the reason why those fairly negative figures about the number of union reps, that's also stabilised in the last 2 or 3 years. Okay, the decline has been arrested, and a lot of people put that down to the fact that unions are organising. They're starting to turn that tide, but the challenge remains a very, very significant one. I just want to make 3 very brief points before I finish. There are key issues. So union organising has had a positive effect. There is evidence of that, but there are some key challenges. And these are 3 points that I'd certainly argue, is that for effective representation, you need strong organisation. You need strong organisation on the ground. And therefore, if you want sustainable increases in membership, what you need at the same time is building representational capacity, so that those members who join the union for support can be supported and can be encouraged into activism. And finally, and this is a key issue that's come out of sort of the research that we're doing, one of the key factors is that whether our new activists, that they're supported, they're integrated, they're included in networks, so that their enthusiasm for becoming an activist within the union isn't lost. So it's about trying to build those connections and those networks of support for those new activists. Okay, I'll leave it there. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much.